Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and I haven't been playing a lot of games lately. Unfortunately, over the last month or so, I have been really busy with life stuff, death in the family, things like that. Had some uh, animal deaths as well on our farm. So, unfortunately, that has kind of taken up a lot of my not just normal time, but my energy and emotional well being as well. So, um, when I did feel like playing games, I did play a few bit. In the last podcast, I actually talked about Rocksmith. How I wanted to get back into Rocksmith and learn the guitar because they launched Rocksmith a couple days prior, and I was really excited to start playing Rocksmith Plus. Unfortunately, they didn't really talk about that game, or, it's more of a tool than a game, a piece of software to help you learn guitar, but it's in a very interesting and fun game-like fashion. There's a lot of game to it. But basically, I went in hoping that it was going to be like Rocksmith and Rocksmith 2014. And I actually own Rocksmith 2014 on Steam, but I wanted the new one, right? Unfortunately, they actually went with a subscription model for the new Rocksmith game. And I was like, ugh, really? Like, it bummed me out because I hate subscription models for most things. Most things don't need to, especially software. Something like Game Pass is very different, and I think Game Pass is fantastic for what they offer. They allow you to play a lot of games you would not normally, or at least me, I would not normally otherwise try out or buy, but I can try them out. And if I really do see it being something that is something that I do want to spend my money on, I totally would. But Rocksmith is not that type of game. And I do want to be able to try it out, and there is no free trial for it. It is you just buy a subscription. And if you already own Rocksmith 2014, they give you 1 or 3 months free, depending on how much you subscribe. So it was my birthday last month, and it came out right before my birthday. I was actually really excited. My wife was out of town, so I had all the free time in the world to actually just dedicate to learning the guitar. I could just sit down here for hours playing the guitar without worrying about, oh my gosh, do I have to make dinner, or, the animals, or even my wife, making sure that she was taken care of and not ignored. So I was really excited. However, one thing was, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, it's my birthday. Why don't I just spend the money on the subscription? And I wavered back and forth because if I bought I think it was 3 or 6 months, I would get 1 month free. But if I paid upfront for 12 full months, a full year of Rocksmith Plus, I could get 3 months free. So that's a significant amount of savings for this, tool to learn online, or to learn guitar. And I really wanted to do it. But there was this feeling that I had, like, you know what? Maybe you don't need to spend that money on this right now. I personally have a issue with trying to pick up and learn the guitar anyways. I've done it so many times over the course of my life. I remember when Rocksmith, the first one, came out in 2009, 2010. That's when it was. Because Arkham City came, no, it was 2011, because Arkham City came out the same day. And I picked that game up, and I was like, I'm going to, I'm going to play the guitar. And I just faltered. I didn't follow through with it. A couple years later, 2014 came out. I was going to do the same thing. And then last year, I was going to do the same thing again, and I just dropped it after a couple hours of trying. I can play some song I hate. I can play that relatively okay, but that was one of those things where I just was like, man, I don't know what I want to do. So basically, I went through and I kind of went through a pros and cons list, and I said, you know what? Before I spend the money upfront for a full year, let me, make sure everything works properly. So I booted up the old version, Rocksmith 2014 remastered. They did it a couple years ago, and I that's what I was using last year to play, and everything worked fine. I'm using the same computer, same operating system, same everything, better graphics card too. And what happened was when they released Rocksmith Plus, for whatever stupid reason, they put out an update. And this is Ubisoft. This is a Ubisoft product. They put out an update for Rocksmith 2014 Remastered, and it completely broke the game. And I'm not just like, oh, the menus are a little bit wonky, there's some, glitching or something like that. No, it straight up doesn't work now. And I was like, this is really weird. And I loaded it up on another computer. It didn't work. And I went through the forums, and everyone is having the same problem. And everyone went, I cannot believe they put out this subscription-based model for this new version of this game that we already have. It works totally fine, and now the old one doesn't even work. So it's a very underhanded thing, and I was really upset about that. And at that point, I just said, you know what? There's going to be some sort of fix. Apparently, there's a workaround where you can opt into a beta version on Steam, but it doesn't work for me on 3 different computers. I've tried it out, and it does not work at all. So super bummed about that. I just dropped the whole idea of learning the guitar yet again. Now, at this point in my life, I just don't think I'll be ever able to play the guitar. And it really bumps me out because I really would like to, but holy freaking crap, every time I pick up that stupid axe, there is something in my life that completely obliterates my desire to do it. I pick it up, I start, and something goes wrong. And that's how it's always been with me. So I just don't think I'll ever learn to play the guitar. I should just sell my guitar and amp because it's just not going to happen at this point, which really sucks. So that already kind of got me off onto the wrong foot. And then a couple other things happened. I played a few games. I do have a PS5 now, which I'm super excited about. Unfortunately, there's not really anything that I can play. I talked about it on the last episode, but I did play Astro's Playground or Playroom, whatever it's called. That was fine for an evening. I want to play Horizon Zero Dawn. I want to finish that on PC, but again, it's just one of those things where I'll get to it when I get to it. There's other games that were coming out at the time that I wanted to play. And what happened was, again, this is my birthday. I had the issue with Rocksmith, so I wanted to really play something interesting that I've wanted to play, kind of starting to go through my backlog. And with the PS5 right now, I knew that they were coming out with a couple games on their version of Game Pass. It's just called like PlayStation Plus Extraordinary Platinum Version Edition. Like it's some stupid retarded name, but whatever. So basically what happened was I wanted to spend a little bit of money and play some games without having to worry about it. So I dropped I think like $100 or something on PlayStation Plus to get the ultimate version of their subscription model for a full year. I went on CD Keys, the website where they actually have older cards. They basically you can buy the older version of PlayStation Plus, and then they'll convert you to the newer model for a little extra money. So I got a good cheap card for a year. Then I upgraded it, and now I have a full year of the PlayStation version of Game Pass and all of that fun stuff. And that unlocked a ton of games that I could download and play. And so I'm super excited about that. One of the games that I played was the Puppeteer. It came out on PS3, and I remember always wanting to play this game. It's always been in my wish list on PlayStation, and it's a very interesting game. I'm really happy that I played it, but at this point in my life, it didn't have the effect it would have had if I played it originally when it came out. Back when Little Big Planet was a more newer type of gameplay style, the weird floaty mechanics of those platformers just does something weird in my brain. I don't like how it feels to play. But with the Puppeteer, it is so drenched in creativity that I was smiling most of the time while I was playing that game. Some of the mechanics, the gameplay itself is not great. That's the bummer part. But the story, the art style, pretty much everything surrounding that game is so well done that, again, I can kind of brush off a little bit of the bad feeling play style and mechanics of the game. Now, that's not to say that it's a great game, because I don't think it's a great game, but I think it's a really good game. And if someone was really interested or really liked the Little Big Planet style of movement and controls, they'll love this game, period. If you don't, but you like creativity and you like seeing something different and interesting in video games, this is a fantastic game. Maybe not to play, and this is where it kind of was a little bit weird in my brain. I would not say I'm not gonna say that I would have rather watched this on YouTube, because I wouldn't. And I wouldn't have rather watched someone play it either. I'm glad that I played it. I just wish it was shorter if I was going to play it. And I played it all the way through. I finished the game and I had a really good time. But there was a point where I just went, this is way longer than it needs to be. This is just dragging out. I'm getting less interested at each act that the game does. Basically, there, I thought, it's present. So the Puppeteer is this game that is presented as a play. And it is so interesting. It's like a modernized version of the Mario 3 intro, where Mario 3, like, the curtains open up and, you have like this whole style of plays going on. And even the world and the level design of Mario 3 is presented as a act, as a play. Mario starts, the screens go up, and, you go through the world. At the end, they have the ending curtain where it's off stage. Like, it is just a really interesting style for video games. And that's why I really think Mario 3 is a fantastic game. This does that on a whole nother level. The entire game, there is the bottom part of the screen is taken up by the stage. And there's curtains on the sides and there's spotlights up top, and they never move. And you would think that would get in the way or be boring, but they play with the aspect of it being a play so often that things, are constantly reminding you you're watching a play. You're not playing a video game, even though you technically are, but you're technically in the universe of this game. It's a play being presented. Characters break the fourth wall. They stumble out of the stage. They interact with each other, talking about, stage direction every once in a while. It's a really, really, really interesting game, and I loved it. I just wish it was shorter. It started off, and I was like, this is the most creative game since Psychonauts by far. And I still believe that. It is like the second most creative game I've ever played. But there are some things going on with it where the screen is, everything is moving all the time. There is never anything that stands still. And that's partly because it's supposed to be a play where stagehands are moving things to create the illusion of movement. But it kind of goes a little bit overboard a lot of the time, where I was just like, dude, I want to look at the character. But because it's in such low definition, and because things are moving at such a hectic, crazy pace 24/7, 100% of the time, I just felt like I could not really wrap my brain about the way the characters looked, how they interacted with things. Everything is just moving at a breakneck speed, and it was just a little bit disappointing. It's like, dude, just calm down, take some Prozac, whatever you need to do to just calm the crap down for a minute so that I can actually look at the character designs. I have no idea what the witch really looks like, or my main character, or the sun princess. Like, man, I have no idea how most characters look because they're moving, zipping across the stage left and right, the screen left and right the entire time. It is crazy. Now, the main thing is it's a platformer. It's a side-scrolling platformer, which is really cool. And they have this mechanic where you have scissors and you cut things. Everything's kind of like almost paper and yarn like. And it's like a combination of Yoshi's Woolly World, Kirby's Epic Yarn, Paper Mario. It's like a combination of all those games. And it is such a cool design. But when you are cutting this with the scissors, which is your main form of attack, it just doesn't feel right. I had no idea where I was going to end up whenever I hit attack. You would kind of float and you have a little bit of a flutter, and you could tap it a few times and fly across the screen, but it just never felt like I had complete control of the character, which is a real big issue with platformers. You need to have control. And if you don't, the game falls flat on its face. And that's where the one thing that I would say broke the game for me was I was having a really good time, but anytime I had to use the scissors, which is a majority of the game, I just felt like I had no control ever. There was boss fights where I scraped by the skin of my teeth because I just never felt like I had control. There's parts where you beat up the boss character and then the boss releases souls, and they're tied to these little strings that you have to clip off with the scissors. And when you do that, there's so many on screen that if you don't get them all as they're, kind of trying to recover, you have to do it again. And that happened almost on every boss where I just did not have the control of my character, where he would like flutter, he would move around with the scissors in a sporadic and irritating way where I just had no control over him. And that was a real big bummer for me. So I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time playing it. I just wish it was a little bit shorter, and the control of the game, the mechanics of the attack, of the scissors, the floatiness of the character. There's a weightlessness to the character that doesn't feel right. The gravity of the game basically just doesn't feel locked in place to where I ever felt like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump and I know exactly where I'm going to land. I just did not have that throughout the entire game. And again, that's a big issue. So I played that. I put it down, and then on Game Pass, there was a new game that was being showcased a couple months ago on some Steam Fest. They've been doing this. Another one just ended today. And with those games, like, I really appreciate that games are, at least Steam is really trying to bring back the demo. They're doing these Steam Fest weeks where they showcase a lot of games and they all have demos, which is rad. But there's so many games that they showcase that you just never, can find the good games, especially with Steam, with PC gaming. There's so many games being released on a day-to-day basis that I have no idea what's being released anymore, especially since I don't listen to gaming podcasts because they all suck now. So I've been really trying to struggle with trying to find games that I'm interested in. And there was a game that came out, a demo came out a couple months ago, and it was called Metal Hellsinger. And the whole crux of this game is basically it is a first-person shooter, rhythm-based. It's a rhythm-based first-person shooter. And the gimmick is that you shoot to the rhythm of the music, and it's all metal based. So the genre is metal. So it's all heavy metal. And what's really cool is they have guest vocalists for all the levels. So it's a really interesting idea. And I played through and I beat the game, but I'll talk about the difficulty that I had with it in just a moment. But basically, it's a first-person shooter, and you are in the depths of hell. You are this demonic spawn that has to rise up the levels of hell and get out of hell. Like, that's the whole thing. Satan, the demons are all, against you, stacked against you, and it's like you got to get away from them, which is really interesting, but also, man, it's so boring. Like, that's a cool idea, but it's been done to death. Like, you've got Doom, and then you've got every Doom clone out there, right? You have every first person shooter that's trying to manipulate and kind of capture the Doom aesthetic, where it's in hell and you're a demon and there's demon spawns, and it's like, dude, just come on. We've been doing this for however many decades now. Like, get a new idea. So I get it. Metal, Satan, hell, all that crap. I personally don't like that. I never have. But I understand why it's a thing. So I started playing this game and I realized really quickly that I've always had this problem in my life. I can't keep a beat. I have a really hard time with rhythm. Maybe that's because I'm white, but it's mostly just the fact that I cannot keep a beat, and I've always had a really, really hard time with that. So playing this game I struggled throughout the first level, and I got through it, but in the second level, I died. And these levels are long. They're really, really long, especially if you can't keep a beat or you have trouble keeping a beat. So you are pulling the trigger on the bass drum. You are on the hi-hat. You are on the beat. You are hitting the trigger. And you have to time all this stuff. Now, that in and of itself wouldn't be that big of a deal. However, you are having enemies chase you and you have to dodge attacks and you have to run away and you have to have the layout of the level, because basically it's hallway, arena shooter, hallway, arena shooter, hallway, arena shooter. This is not a very well done game. It's a very basic level design, which I was really disappointed at, because I thought it was going to be a big game, but it is a small game by a small developer, and they got a lot of big names. That's where all the money went, is in the music, which, hey, fine, great. That's the whole, like I said, gimmick of the game. So the gimmick is done well, really well. Basically, what happens is you start out and you just have the underlying background track. And as you gain momentum, as you gain more kills and up your combo meter, more and more of the soundtrack of the game gets layered on. So starts out with just a beat, and then the guitar comes in, and then, or maybe the bass comes in, and then the guitar, and then the lead guitar, and then when you have as many combos as possible, you hit that combo cap, you get the vocals. The vocals come in, and it is so freaking cool when that happens. It is rad. So what I did is, because I was having such an issue with playing through this game on the normal difficulty, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to play it on easy. I turned it down to easy, and I was able to beat the game. I still had a hard time in certain aspects. And there is this one character that has this like Gatling gun arm, but they have a shield. And dude, that shielded enemy shows up in like the third level, and it is the hardest enemy of the entire game for me by far. It sucked that I had that much of an issue with it, but I still was able to beat it. I had a good time. They set up for a sequel, and I hate when games do that, when there's not a guarantee that there's going to be a sequel. But they also kind of do that at the very end. They basically have the narrator say, maybe I'll see you in the next one, but maybe I won't. Who knows? Time will tell. And it's like, okay. Excuse me. Okay, at least you're allowing us to understand that you want to make a sequel, but you might just not be able to. So at least that's okay. I just wish, if you are not guaranteeing a sequel, like, at least make the story cap end well. And I think they do for the most part. I think the ending really leaves some satisfaction. It just felt very basic to me. And again, that's almost 100% because I had to play it on easy. I really wish there was an option to turn off the rhythm where I could just play it like a normal shooter. If I could do that, I think it would be a much more interesting and fun game for me. I just cannot do it. You have so much to think about by just having it be a first person shooter game that prides itself on being fairly difficult. Most of these games, most first person shooters want it to be hardcore. And I really hate that style of gameplay because that's not interesting, especially because most people nowadays, the especially for me, it's not a aspect of, oh my gosh, this is so hard, it's like the NES, haha. It is, oh cool, you don't respect my time, you don't want me to you want me to play this game longer than I need to, and it doesn't need to be that long. And you're just adding cannon fodder, you're just amping up the bullet sponginess of these characters as opposed to making a very well balanced game. So that aside, I think it was a pretty interesting game. I really wish, and again, this is on me. This is my fault for not being able to keep a beat properly, so that I had to bump down the difficulty, but I had fun with it. And that was Metal Hellsinger, which is on Game Pass, and that's kind of why I played it, because I was like, "Oh, it's on Game Pass. Shoot, it's free for me, so I'll play it." And then also on Game Pass, I've been playing this a lot lately, is Grounded. Grounded came out a couple years ago on Game Pass in early access. And basically what it is a survival game, kind of like Minecraft, and all those types of games with realistic graphics. But the gimmick here is that you are in basically a someone's backyard, and you are very, very, very tiny. Little bit of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type of style to it. There's a huge amount of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in it. Because basically you start off as this character, and a scientist was, doing experiments in the backyard, and you got to figure out what's going on. I kind of had the ending spoiled for me while I was watching someone else play it. I was watching this streamer play it, and I was like, okay, cool. And then he got to the end game, and I was like, I'm just kind of sitting here watching TV, kind of killing some time. And I saw kind of like the main things in the ending and what's going on with that. And I was like bummed out a little bit, but I dropped a good chunk of hours into this game, and it's really, really cool. It's really hard, though, man. It is very difficult because I feel like I never have armor that helps. I don't have weapons that are good. I just feel at a big disadvantage anytime I go out exploring in that game. And you start off with like nothing, and you kind of find some areas, and you can pick up stuff, and you learn how to craft certain things, and you unlock different recipes by analyzing stuff in little science centers. It's a really, really interesting game. And it's also multiplayer. So I really want to play it with someone else because I think that's where the game really unlocks. I think that's where it would be way more interesting of a game when I'm playing with someone else. And I just haven't had that moment or opportunity yet. But it sounds like on our Discord server that is going to hopefully happen pretty soon, which I'm excited about. But it is really, really cool. You start off as this little tiny character, and you can you make a couple tools, and you start cutting down stalks of grass. You have regular green grass and then dry grass, and then you can find little sprigs and stuff like that, and you can make rope. And then you find ants and roly-polies and ladybugs and grubs and larvae, all these different animals you can attack. And if you survive the attack and you kill them, you can harvest their parts, and you can use their parts to make other, different types of things. And you can use their body parts for armor and weapons and stuff like that. So like if you beat up a mosquito, you can use the mosquito's like nose as a sword, stuff like that. It's really, really, again, creative. And that's what I love about video games, is when there's creative video games where they take something and just make it more interesting. like I said, I've dumped a ton of hours in this game, and it's mostly because this is a really interesting and creative game. I remember playing it when it first came out a couple years ago, and I got to a spider boss, and I was just so under equipped with it. And we were moving at the time too that I just didn't pick it back up. And I said, you know what? I'll just wait until this game is done. And it finally came out in 1.0, out of early access. So I've been playing that and I'm having a blast. Exploring is crazy. It is a little bit scary in certain aspects. I think one of the main things that I wish would be a little bit better is the lighting. And what I mean by that is um, the day night cycle is way too long. The night cycle is so long, it wastes so much time. As soon as it gets dark, you can't see anything. And when you sleep, you can sleep for 8 hours on the dot. And if you wake up, like if you are out exploring and it's starting to get dark, you go, okay, I'm across the yard. It's going to take me a little bit to get back to home base. You get to back to home base, it's still a little bit light out. You can sit there and waste your time. And I had to do this so many times where I got back to home base and it was still a little bit light out, but not enough to where I could go out exploring or stay out exploring longer than I thought I needed to. Maybe by a minute or two at most. As soon as it gets dark, you can't see anything and you're very, very vulnerable. So I went around and I uh, kind of at my home base, I would kind of sit there and kind of create recipes or create potions or whatever, food and all that stuff. And then I would try and sleep. And then as soon as I slept, I would wake up and I still had like 3 to 5 minutes of darkness. So I would just put my controller down, pick up my phone, and wait for the in-game clock to the sunrise to show up because as soon as you see the sunrise, everything gets illuminated and you can go out. I do have like torches, like fire torches and lightning bug or firefly torches that you can actually use to illuminate stuff a little bit better. It's not very great though. You can only see so far in front of you before it's still pitch black dark, and it's just not worth it. So, and the base building takes a long time, and I had some real big issues with not being able to unlock certain things for a long time because I didn't realize um, I needed to cut down grass and take that grass and analyze it. And the only way you can do that is holding it, go to the analyzer while you're holding it, which you normally can't do. And then it shows up in your inventory. But that's only if you're holding it. You can't have a stalk of grass in your inventory and walk around without holding it. And it was a little bit weird. I didn't realize that. So I had a really fun time, but it is something that I'm going to have to spend a lot more time in to actually get deeper into the game because I feel like I'm at a disadvantage with it, which is a bummer. So that's kind of what I've been playing. The next thing that I want to talk about is kind of what I'm looking forward to over the next course of the next couple of weeks or the rest of this month, I'm going to say. There's 2 games that are coming out. One next week, which is A Plague Tale Requiem. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. The reason why is because the first one was a game of the month a few months ago. Earlier in the year, we played A Plague Tale Innocence for our game of the month. And man, that was so fun. Oh my gosh. My wife was actually watching me play it. She was like super digging it. So I'm super excited for the sequel to come out, which continues on the story with Hugo and Amicia. And the rats they're saying the technology for the rats is just insane. It requires a pretty beefy computer, I guess, which I'm super excited about too. So I'm super excited about that. And then also God of War Ragnarok, which I love the God of War series. I don't care what anyone says. I think the 2018, the newer version that came out on PS4 was just a perfect step for that series. It reinvigorated the series. It went in a new direction. It still kept it kept the storyline going too. Like no one, when they were playing it, realized that it was a sequel and not a reboot. most people assumed it was a reboot, and they didn't really say anything. I didn't really pay attention to that. And I'm not paying attention to anything about this one either. I'm on 100% media blackout. I haven't watched a trailer. I haven't seen anything about this game. So I'm not going to do any spoilers because I don't know anything about this game other than it's God of War. It's called Ragnarok, and it continues the story of Kratos and his son. I can't remember his son's name. Boy, whatever his name is. But I'm really excited about that. And now, again, I have a PS5. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted a PS5. I was hoping and hoping and hoping that I would get a PS5 so that I could play God of War Ragnarok. And I can now, so I'm super, super excited. But that's kind of what I've been looking forward to. I still need to finish a couple games before those games come out. One is Stray. My wife and I played it a couple months ago before we had a bunch of stuff going on in our lives. And unfortunately, that's a short game, and we didn't get to finish it. But now that she's back, I can finish that game with her because it's a game that we're playing together. And if it's a game we're playing together, I cannot go off and finish it without her. But man, those cats are so cute. It is so fun to play as a little cat and scratch at the door and at the carpet and roll up and just go to sleep on someone's lap or leg or pillow or something. It's a really cool game. I love that game a lot. Another game that I've been playing that I really want to get more into is because, again, I had got the PS5 and I got the PS5 Plus, premium package or whatever. They allow you to not only have the back catalog and also the new games every month, but they also allow you to do a little bit of game streaming. Now, I personally kind of hate this because I don't want to stream games. I had to do that with the Puppeteer, and I much, much would have rather had it able to be downloaded instead of streaming. Because if you are streaming that game and you let it idle for X amount of time, which is not a super long time, it's pretty short, it will close out on you and says, we're making space for other people. And it's really stupid because A, I'm paying for the service. I should be able to use it as much as I want. I don't care about giving the stream to other people because I can guarantee you not that many people are using it. Not that many people are streaming the Puppeteer for me to be kicked off if I have to take a phone call, which happened. I had a birthday phone call from one of my friends, and he and I talked for a while. And I was playing that game. I put it on pause, and I was in the middle of a level too. You can't really save in the middle of the level on the Puppeteer. So he called me up. We talked for like an hour and a half, and I was walking around the house talking to him, just kind of hanging out. And I noticed that the game just shut off after like 15 minutes, and I was back in the main menu, and I went, "Oh, that sucks." Because then I had to replay the whole level over again. I was kind of near the end towards the boss too. And I went, man, that sucks. I don't want to have to redo that. And like I said, the levels are long in that game too. So it is not just I'll just start and I missed, a minute or two. I missed 15, 20 minutes. I have to replay this level over again. So the streaming aspect, they did the Puppeteer and I played through that. But they also are celebrating Sly Cooper. I think it's the 20th anniversary. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm a little bit congested today. But the Sly Cooper games, I always wanted to get into, and I never have. And they did a HD release on the PS3. And again, this is why console exclusive, especially console exclusive HD remasters are super dumb. Just put it on the PC and you don't have to do a remaster. You can just upgrade it. You can just play it forever on any hardware and up-res everything. But they put this out on the PS3, and because the PS3 technology was so poorly designed that you can't download the game. You have to stream it. So I was like, man, that kind of sucks, but whatever. So I started it and I really like it and I want to play through all of the games in that collection. Sly 1, 2, 3, and then I think they did a fourth one, but I can't remember. It's like A Thief in Time or something like that. But I've got the whole collection there waiting for me. I just need to play it. Started playing it. I played through like the first tutorial level or whatever, and I had a really fun time. I went, man, I'm going to really dig this. I just need to have some time to be able to sit down and play this game. And it's a little bit harder for me to play a game in from that era because it is not retro, but it is not brand new. And it's like, there's just something about PS2 games that it's a little bit harder for me to get into that era. They don't control great. They're very simplified. But again, I'm only in the tutorial, so I'm sure it'll get better as I play through it, but I just got to take some time to play through it a little bit. And the last thing that I want to talk about is Game of the Month. So, October's Game of the Month. Let's go back to September. September's Game of the Month was Tunic. And I started playing it earlier this year when it came out on Game Pass, but I played Elden Ring. And I really liked Elden Ring. And then I tried getting into Tunic and I said, dude, I just can't play this style of game. I don't like that style of game. I don't like the Dark Souls combat. I don't like the way those games feel. I don't like anything about those games. Tunic is Dark Souls wrapped in a very cutesy, style. And with the isometric angle, it provides a much more difficult, a difficult type of feeling to it. And I had a real hard time getting back into that game. And I spent probably about half an hour, 45 minutes wandering around going, where the crap am I? What am I supposed to do? I have no idea. I keep dying. And I hate the Dark Souls style of game. Don't respawn enemies every time I save. Don't respawn, enemies every time I boot up the game. Don't respawn enemies every single time I do anything in your game. And then also allow me to have a little bit of time. And again, that game is so designed to be a puzzle that coming back 6 months later and trying to figure out where to go with, again, they basically say, here is an entire intricate world designed to be just so fascinating, but we're not going to tell you a single thing. Even the menu, you have to literally find items to tell you how the game works, which is a really cool idea. I actually think the whole finding the instruction booklet and it's styled after a Super Nintendo or an original Nintendo like instruction manual is just super unique and really cool. It's really well done. But trying to get back into that game after 6 months was just impossible. I didn't even know where the shield was. And I was like, I was struggling so much. I went, this is Game of the Month. I got to play this. I'm not having a fun time. So what I did is I looked into, I pulled up a video and started watching a walkthrough, found out roughly the area where I was, watched about 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, where did that guy get a shield? I don't have a shield. Where's the shield? And I scrubbed through the video. I found where the shield was, and it's hidden in just some obscure little tiny backroom door that is completely covered, and you wouldn't know it was there unless you knew it was there. And I got the shield. I booted up the game. I got the shield. I tried progressing a little bit more, got stuck. I just wandered around again for another half hour, and I just went, screw this. I can't play these types of games. When they don't tell you anything, like it's so, and I've gone off this subject so many times on this podcast, but I'll go again just really quick. When they split the difference between hand holding way too much. You do not need to tell me push forward on the stick to go forward, push backward on the stick to go backwards, push left on the stick to go left, push right on the stick to go. I don't need that. But I do need to know, well, you got into this area and it's a big open world and every part is blocked and every part is covered with, enemies and you have no idea where to go. I need a little bit of a direction. Like, don't tell me this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need, this is where you need to go, this is how you do it. Just tell me, well, you kind of need something and it's in that general direction. So go that way. Like, that's what I need. I don't need hand holding, and I don't need someone to just push me off a cliff and say, figure it out, sucker. Like, I hate both of those mentalities, and that's the only type of games people make. And it's insane that it's either way too handholdy and it's made for babies, or it is made for the person who only plays one game an entire year and they just devour that game because that's all that they play. And then I was hearing someone talk about Dark Souls. I can't remember who it was or what they said exactly, but they basically were talking about how Dark Souls are made for people. The Dark Souls games are made for people who already have mastered Dark Souls at this point. They are not made for people to get into. And I fully believe that. I think that is 100% true. These games are designed for people who have already mastered them, which is insane because how can you get into something that you have never touched before? How can you already be a master at something you've never even seen? So I hate that style of game just as much as I hate the tutorial baby hand holding. And it's a real big frustration. So I played a little bit of it. I put it down. I'll probably never pick it up again. Like, it's a really cool game, but holy crap, like, just a little bit of an indication would immediately change my mind on that entire game. Like, just, hey, you need this, or in this general direction, because it is so gated off because you have to plow through 50 different types of enemies every single time. And if you don't know how to do that, or if you're not a amazing, perfect master at the game, you're going to really, really struggle. And you're going to die so many times, you're going to get frustrated and stop. And that's kind of what happened with me, where I would just go through these enemies over and over, and I'm just so tired of fighting them. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you have the other side of the coin too, where everyone's just like, oh yeah, just run past them. If the game is designed to run past them, why are they there in the first place? Make this a walking simulator at that point, because there is, and this is kind of goes into last year when I was playing the Metroid games. Going through all the Metroid games, enemy respawns every single time you enter a screen. It's like, at some point you just run past everything, and why don't you just do that from the beginning? If that's the way the game is designed, why? Why even fight any character in any game if you're just supposed to run past them after a little bit of time? You gain nothing. There's no point system. There's no power-ups or anything like that. The only time you need to kill someone is to either, I'm talking about Metroid in this aspect, but the only time you would have to kill an enemy in those games is to get missiles or to get health. This is the only times. That's it, right? So why fight characters? Why fight enemies? Why is that game even populated with enemies if they don't serve a purpose? And man, I just that's one of the original reasons why I hated Dark Souls. I said, wait, these enemies respawn every single time I sit down and save, every time I get to a point where, again, I hate Dark Souls so much. Even after playing Elden Ring and really liking it, I hate Dark Souls. The save system, the never pausing, the infinite spawning enemies, just all of that garbage. The whole, oh, we're going to make it so that people can invade your game and then kill you. Like, screw off, dude. I'm not 12 years old and don't just sit in my house playing this game all day long, every day, and don't have any responsibilities. I have responsibilities. I need to pause a game, all right? Don't tell me I can't pause a game. That right there, I don't know how Dark Souls got so popular just because of that. Like, that is insane that took off and became popular. People are dumb. I didn't even mean to get off on this topic. I actually want to talk about this month's game of the month, which is Pilot Wing 64. So last month we were deciding what game to play for game of the month, and Tunic was the one that got picked. But most people, for whatever reason, someone talked about Blast Core on 64, and I was like, "Oh, that's really funny. I actually played Blast Core like 2 nights ago, and now you're bringing that random, rare N64 game up. Not rare as in it's hard to find, rare as the company that made it." And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Someone else brought that up." So I was talking about it, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Blast Core, Blast Core, Blast Core." But it did not win the game of the month. I apologize. I am trying not to sniff and sniffle into the microphone. But everyone was talking about that game, even though they didn't pick it for game of the month. So it kind of became like the sub game of the month. And everyone really got into Blast Core. And then for whatever reason, someone said Pilot Wings. And I was going through some stuff a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't really vote in it. And a lot of people didn't, but two people did. And they both picked Pilot Wings 64. So we're playing Pilot Wings 64. And man, I love that game. I played it with my friend Andrew a few years ago, and we didn't get super far into it, but we played a little bit of it, and we left the music on. Like, he was hanging out with me. We left the music on while we were making dinner or something, and he's just like, "Dude, this music's really good." And we sat there letting the music loop as we made dinner, and it was just like so awesome. So I was like, "Dude, I'm stoked that Pilot Wings 64 is our game of the month for October." Uh, and I played a little bit of it. I'm about halfway through at this point. I originally wanted to do 100% score on everything. The reason why is because why not? It's an N64 game. Shouldn't be that difficult. And, it's a very basic game. You have just a few events and you just got to get a 100% score. I am having some difficulty with the scoring. I had difficulty with Birdman, like the hang glider stage. That's what it is. The hang glider stage landing, I still am not very good at. I would always have horrible landing accuracy, or I would get good accuracy, but the landing impact. So I'll kind of describe this just so that I can kind of get it out there, because I was not very good at this. And I did this when I was younger too. When this game was originally out and I would play it, I would just hold the brake, have the camera pointed downwards as far as possible and be able to just kind of land and drop down. But when you do that, your landing impact is, bottomed out. It's zeroed out. And you have like a 20 point score for landing. And I would always get like 1 or 0 points for landing impact. So what you need to do is you need to approach it as level as possible, just barely skimming the top and floating above the top of the ground. And you'll brake and your feet will actually run along the ground, kind of like when you are hang gliding and parachuting and skydiving. You don't just drop straight on the ground. You come at it from a angle and you run along and you keep your momentum as you touch the ground. So that is kind of something that I had to start really paying attention to. And I've started getting better at it, but I'm still not great at it. So I need to practice that a little bit. But I love the hang gliding. I love the gyrocopter. I love the Birdman stage. I love, what's the other one? I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'm excited to kind of unlock all the extra stuff in that game as well. And I'm just having a blast, man. And I would always pick Goose. Goose is the tall, lanky character that is drenched in the American flag. But because I've only played as Goose every single time I play that game, I am starting to change out characters. I don't believe there's any actual difference. I think they're just characters and they talk and look different, but that's it. But I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. And that's going to do it for me for this episode 62 of the Game or Die podcast. I've just been going through some stuff and just having a really difficult last couple of weeks and last month and a half or so. So I am just kind of wanting to do a podcast, keep it light and breezy. But If you have any questions or anything like that, you can always drop a email for the podcast. I believe it's podcast.gameordie@gmail.com for right now. I had a Game or Die domain email, but I haven't, I think I removed it for whatever reason. But I believe if you do have any comments, you can drop it there at podcast.gameordie@gmail.com. Or you can just go to my website. That's where I talk about all this stuff in written form, all the video reviews and reviews for games that I finish and complete. I really don't do reviews for games that I'm just playing. I only do reviews for games that I complete. So you can find all that stuff. I just redid the website, so I am adding a lot of the older stuff still. I got like, I think 100 plus reviews, and I still got a couple hundred more that I need to add on there, but it will be going up soon. It is there, gameordie.net. That is the website. So you can always check out that stuff, see what games I've been finishing up. And then also, again, just this podcast. I just like talking about games, you know. This isn't a business or a side hustle or anything. This is just me wanting to talk about video games because I freaking love video games. They're like my main hobby. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. My name is Ryan Moore. Again, this is the Game or Die podcast. You can go to gameordie.net for all those written reviews, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.